It's a lovely morning in Honolulu, Hawaii, about 8:13 a.m. I'm Noel Tipon, and this is the Tipon Report, alongside my co-host, as always, Attorney Emmanuel Tipon, who is on his way to the studio right now to join us. So those people who are unable to watch it or unable to listen to us live can listen to the show. You can even put your comments into the video. I think the video from our last show is going to be up on YouTube, if not already, shortly. But some of the things that some of the issues that have been coming up over the past week, and I've gotten questions about. One of them is they go hand in hand a little bit with COVID restrictions now being eased in Honolulu and the influx of tourism, and so. I'm wondering if that's even a concern. If numbers are a concern, maybe they just don't want to put that number out. It's probably it's like most things that happen in life. They're either political or they have to do with some sort of monetary reason for not being put out there. And here in Hawaii, a lot of the time that money aspect of why motivating people or motivating the government is linked a lot to tourism, because tourism is the source of a lot of the money that comes into Hawaii. And a lot of people have told me, hey, are you anti-tourism? You don't like tourists coming here. You don't like tourists coming to Hawaii and being here. And that's nothing of the sort. Before I lived here, I was a tourist here. Every time I go down to Waikiki, I was down in Waikiki on Saturday surfing with the boys. And I went to go visit with Dad. I went to go visit with you, and we went to go to surf. And every time I go to Waikiki, I say this, it feels like I'm on vacation. So, and a lot of that has to do with the tourists. And so I don't mind tourists coming here. And it's no different than any other tourist location, whether you're at San Francisco, New York, or any people who live in rural areas like where there are national parks. We absolutely do not mind tourists because they are a source of income, and a lot of the economy here is based on tourism. We want them to come, but we want them to respect the things that are here. Don't leave a mess. Whenever I go someplace, you try and leave with as little of a footprint as possible. It's impossible to leave no footprint. Even when you go camping, you leave something there. You throw trash away in the trash can. And there are people on Instagram and on social media who post, oh, look at all the trash, look at all the junk that's left behind. And yes, they have a point. You try and be a little bit more mindful of the places that you throw trash and things of that nature, but you can't expect there to be no trash if you want tourists. And they all every business owner wants tourism. Here in Hawaii, because that's what most of the business is used for. So welcome to Hawaii, and enjoy the weekend, enjoy the weather, but try and leave as small a footprint as you possibly can and respect the places that you visit. But that goes hand in hand with a question that we received about the release of prisoners into society. And how does that tie in? Well, that's just more people on the street. And that's, maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes it's better for people to be released into the community. And, quite honestly, sometimes it's better for them to be at OCCC. But the Supreme Court of Hawaii, during the height of the pandemic, they did this prisoner release. And they released hundreds of prisoners onto the community at once. Now, absolutely, people should be released from prison when their prison sentence is up, but this early release program had a lot of controversy, and a lot of it had to do with why they were being released and whether or not that there would be any societal protections when you release such a large number of inmates or former inmates or prisoners onto the population. I've been in the judicial system here in Hawaii for over 10 years, and for people who have been incarcerated and locked up and getting the paroling authority to release them is a huge task. They want you to be financially set so you're not a drain on society. They want you to be, they want you to have the tools in place so that you won't reoffend. They want to make sure that you have a place to live so that you won't be homeless. They want to make sure that you're safe. They want to make sure that the community is safe. They want to make sure that people don't go out there and are not motivated to commit additional crimes or crimes again. And I think that that's the impetus behind the paroling authorities, whatever draconian methods they use in order to decide who is released and who is not released. They want to make sure that everything. I mean, they want it almost to be a perfect world, both for you and for society before a prisoner is released. You know, take it as you will, good or bad. I think that their intentions are. Their heart is in the right place. Their intentions are good. Whether or not that translates into what's truly beneficial for the individual, you know, their mindset is that they've committed crimes, they've been incarcerated, and this is part of the punishment, part of the rehabilitation, if you will, before being released into society, and that's great. The other side of that, and I know that as a criminal defense attorney, there's a lot of criminal defense lawyers who encourage the mass release of people into society, and I understand their point, because you are advocating for your client. You want your client to be released because you believe that they have some sort of redeeming quality and they should be released. I mean, I truly believe that when I'm advocating for something, I believe in it, and so if I'm advocating for my client to be released. Part of it is you take your client's word for it. Part of it is you take his references word for it, and that you have a hope that he truly will go out there and not be some sort of repeat offender. And that's all well and good, and that's the check and the balance. That is the interplay between the paroling authority, the prosecutor's office, and the client's attorney, if you will. So. I understand all sides of the argument, but the trouble comes when there is a mass release of people, and there is no system in place on the outside to truly to take them on if those safety measures aren't in place. And this happens a lot when the justice system panics for some reason. And that's exactly what the coronavirus and all of these COVID restrictions and regulations really caused in every facet of personal life and the government. And so it caused this panic, and because they didn't want to have a coronavirus outbreak in the prisons, and they thought that mass releasing all these inmates would help prevent that. The unfortunate thing is it didn't help. It didn't help with controlling an outbreak of the coronavirus at any of the facilities. It still happened. You didn't hear about it because with prisons, they have a tendency to try and hide those things. Like all things that government related, that when things go wrong, they try and hide these things. There's less transparency. But be that as it may, there was a mass release. And the problem came when these individuals reoffended. And so there was the blame game, and they threw it around about who was to blame. So I think that part of the lesson that I see there is when there is a panic set in place, and people react instead of just acting or being deliberate in their thinking and their thought process, and then you leave the decision making really to people who have no business making these decisions, whether they're elected officials, whether they're the Supreme Court, who ultimately are political picks because they're not elected. They are picked by the governor after a committee then gives a list of nominations to the governor, and then he simply picks from them, and there's no real, at least from what I can see, no rhyme or reason. I think it shows their true colors when something like the coronavirus happens and there's a panic that sets in, and then people in positions of authority, whether they deserve to be in those positions of authority or not, they simply react without thinking, and they I don't know where they're taking their advice from. they're taking their advice probably from other politicians who are telling them what to do or what not to do. And you get mass release of inmates, and if you believe the statistics that are out there on the internet, over half of them reoffended. And whose fault is that? Well, a lot of it is the individual's fault. I would say most of it is the individual's fault, because they're the one who's making the individual decision to go out there and commit another crime. But you have to think to yourselves, well, were the safeguards and the systems put in place that could have prevented them from making that decision or being put in a position? Because some people are they're just criminals. Some people just are, and there's no rehabilitating them. But a lot of these crimes come from need, and if there is no system put in place and you're just released without the safeguards that are necessary to catch you when you're going to fall, then yeah, of course you're going to fall back into that same life of crime that got you to where you are. I think that there probably is a solution out there. There is not going to be one perfect solution, but there is probably a solution out there. But it has to. You can't panic when you are coming up with these solutions. But your thoughts on that, Dad? You've seen an increase in the number of people who are in Waikiki, and since you live in that area, it must be school's out, but the crowds are bigger in Waikiki.
Yes. Before I address that issue, Noel, I was coming out of the condo this morning, and one of my neighbors said, "Oh, attorney, you look well dressed." "I'm always well dressed," I said. "I'm having a meeting with the Honorable Mayor Rick Blangiardi at high noon today. I have a meeting, no holds barred, no agenda. I don't know why this meeting is being called. And so I invite all of you, if you have any issues or concerns about how the city is being run, send me a text message at my telephone 225-2645. 225-2645. Send me a text message with your name and your concern. Your name, telephone, and your concern or issue." So I invited Colina Nabusa, who might be running for governor, to join me if she wishes, and she asked me what time. So high noon.
High noon. Did he set that? Did he set that on purpose? High noon.
I made it a high noon. It's at 12 o'clock noon. So
all right. Well, send your questions. If you have any questions, send them to tiponreport@gmail.com.
Please
again,
send them, because we don't have any agenda. I don't want people complaining how this and that, and we could have addressed that with the mayor. We don't know how long this will take. We don't know whether lunch will be served, but that's not the purpose of the meeting. So
did he tell you that he's going to implement all of your everything that you suggest?
Oh, I don't know. And Noel, please join us, because the mayor likes you. 12 noon. I've not been inside the mayor's office, but when he was inaugurated, I was the only Filipino who was there, and the guard asked me, "What's your name? We want to check if you're on the list." And I said, "No, I'm not in the list. He just called me." And they saw me carrying a broom, and they asked, "What's that?" I said, "It's a broom." So after he delivered his inaugural speech, he came to me. I did not go to him. I was just standing there beside the post. And I said, "I brought you a broom to clean up the mess in City Hall. So I want to find out if the broom is still there."
Who else is going to be at this? Who else is going to be at this meeting?
I don't know who he invited, but I invited Colina Nabusa, and hopefully she will join us. But we want to hear from you, Abu. This is an opportunity for the Filipinos to voice your concerns. Whether you have a complaint or grievance, or you want some solutions, let us know. This is a one-on-one meeting with him. Maybe there will be others. I don't know.
Well, I can be there. I have court at 1. But I wonder if I can tell. I wonder if I can I probably can't tell the judge I'm in a meeting with the mayor and postpone court, but maybe I'll go shake his hand, say hi, and then head off to
leave,
court.
yeah. Uh, so yes, he likes
We can talk about the homelessness issue. So if you got it out there.
Issue. Now, the homeless issue. I was going to my lanai and doing my exercise, and across from me, the sidewalk, there's a homeless person reading a magazine. So they are making life useful for themselves. Reading a magazine early in the morning, about 5:30. So by the light of the rising sun, they are there. And I don't know why they cannot solve this homeless problem, because in the Philippines, in the major cities, you don't see homeless people. And the reason being that it's a culture thing to me. The Filipinos have a sense of shame or self-pride, which they learned from the Spanish people. You know, the Spaniards are very arrogant people, at least during those times. Maybe not now. I've met some Spanish people, and they have a lot of self-pride. They know what it is to be ashamed. But what I can see among the homeless here is they are not ashamed to display themselves in public. If I were homeless, I would be hiding, covering myself with a blanket or a double mask. And the solution apparently is to use police force. You cannot cuddle them. In the Philippines, you are lying there in the middle of the street, they have the batuta or the police, and they'll beat you up if you do not listen to them. Of course, here the human rights people will complain that you're beating up, but they're violating the law. When you are lying down there on the sidewalk or being idle, you are violating the law. So it's a matter of law enforcement. You need a strong administrator. And I'm going to invite the mayor to see the Philippines, see how we enforce the law. And if he wants to run for re-election, as I believe he will, otherwise he'll not be inviting Emmanuel Tipon and others to talk with him. So we will address the concerns of the residents of Hawaii. So the homeless problem appears insoluble in Hawaii, but when I was in San Francisco, the usual hangouts of the homeless were clean. Union Square, Powell Street.
Oh, they just move. That's it's no different than what they do here. I mean, a lot of the solution to this homeless problem started. Well, I shouldn't say solution, but one of their attempts at solving the homeless problem started back in early 2020. And I think that they had already thought about doing this before the coronavirus pandemic happened. And there was a budget request by the governor. And I think that the budget request was some $1 million amount. And the purpose behind this was to solve the homeless crisis. That's what it was touted as. We're going to ask for millions of dollars to solve the homeless crisis. And so he asked for millions of dollars, and the legislature actually gave him, I think they actually gave him more than what he had asked for. It was reported in the news, like $2 million over what he asked for to solve the homeless crisis. And what it turns out is that the money is being used solely to clear out homeless encampments, throw away their trash, store their trash, and just displace these people that they believe are homeless and are living in these encampments. And so if you see that, you'll see homeless encampments in the park, you'll see homeless encampments under the viaduct, you'll see homeless encampments on the Nimitz Highway just before, around where the Zippies is. You always see that same homeless encampment, and part of it is because the Salvation Army is there. The police will come and routinely just displace them. They'll wake them up, take down all of their tents. They'll move across the street. That's good enough for the police. They'll gather up some of the things, and I think they took hundreds of tons of trash and material, and they either stored it or disposed of it over the past year since this budget request has been being used. And that's what they do. That's their solution, is displacing it. And I think that they interviewed the governor or maybe a spokesman, and he was like, well, why are you using this money simply to displace them? Why aren't you using this multi-million-dollar budget request to actually solve the homeless problem? And his response was something to the effect of, well, there's money elsewhere for that. There's the CARES Act, and we're going to get money from Washington, D.C. And then we have to stop this reliance on Washington, D.C., think that they're going to solve all of our problems by just throwing money at the problem. But the solution to homelessness, well, you can't eliminate it completely. I just don't think that because there are people who, because of substance abuse, because of just their own personal choice, they will never want to be in a home. They'll never want to live under somebody else's rules. And that can be from borrowing money to buy a home, to renting money to live in an apartment, because they have to live by their rules. And they can't just do whatever they want. They can't leave it a mess. They can't come and go when they please, despite what we see on some of these, Aloha Junkman things where they're clearing out places and it's just a mess. Landlords will not stand for that. There are some people who prefer to live out on the street, and you'll never eliminate it. But the solution has to come. The solution is economic, and the solution is you have to make it a better choice for people who aren't just lost because of substance abuse. You have to give them a better alternative to living on the street. Where does that come from? Well, you're right. It starts when they're young. We can't continue to create a generations after generation after generation, where they would much rather live on the street than go out. And I mean, it's a tired adage. It's probably worn out, and these millennials and these liberals will probably not like this, but it's about instilling that desire in these young people to want to get a job. And it goes back to what you said about being proud of yourself, being proud of your heritage, being proud of whatever. You want to encourage them to go out there, get a job, work, be a productive member of society, be proud of what you contribute to society, and that makes you rather want to live in a house and not just wander around the streets. Because you'll see kids today, it's a very childish attitude. You hear it. I mean, I talk to my children who are intelligent, and ultimately they don't want to be homeless, but they would much rather, it's summer vacation, they'd much rather sit in front of a computer or sit in front of the TV and stare their life away at something giving them information than going out there and being productive. And school, during the school year, maybe summer, but of course that's what most, if you could just waste your life away, I would say there's a very good significant portion of the population that would just waste their life away. But if you don't give them that sense of, I'd rather get a job and earn a living, then that's where it starts. I mean, it starts when they're young, and then the choice now is, would I rather just live out on the street or go out there, get a job, and be a productive member of society? And for a lot of these people, it's, I'd rather live on the street.
Oh, I was at Max yesterday, and one of the customers there said, "Oh, how's your son?" I said, "Oh, he's fine. We like to hear him. What do you want to hear from him?" And they want to hear about the criminal justice system, about this, how to handle a court appearance when you are called for the first time, because they are so nervous. These Filipinos are very courageous outside, but once they get inside the courtroom, oh my God, they are as meek as a lamb. So they don't know what to do. Furthermore, they cannot speak English, so they're trembling with fear. So can you tell us, or tell the audience, Noel, what they ought to do when they first appear before the courtroom and they are arraigned or asked to answer for a crime like overspeeding or drunk driving? What happens when they first appear before the court and charged with the crime. They have no lawyer.
They have no lawyer? Okay. Well, start by getting a lawyer. I mean, if it's a serious crime, I mean, that would be the first thing that you do. I mean, you have to treat a court appearance as if you're going to you're going to stand before it's Judgment Day, and you're about to stand before your God, and He's going to judge you. You want to make a good first impression. I mean, He probably, God knows all things. He's omnipotent. But the first thing that surprises me when I go into court is that a significant number of the population that goes in there are not respectful, and they are not dressed appropriately. You have to go in there. One of the clients that I go with, he comes in a suit, and I'm like, they're going to confuse who's the lawyer and who's the client if you're dressed in a suit and tie just like me, so you don't need to be in a suit and tie. But how about pants, a collared shirt, and closed-toed shoes? And if you don't want to be, I don't understand why I'm treated this way when I walk in. It's because you look like you should be treated that way. I'm not saying that you have to wear a collared shirt everywhere you go, but if you want to be treated with some dignity, if you want to be given some sort of, your first impression really is everything. Go in there in your Sunday best, as if you're going to church. You're willing to get dressed up to go to church or to get married or to do something. And although I do see some people getting married in slippers, I don't care that it's Hawaii. If you go in there and you are well put together and you appear like you're taking the process seriously, then the judge won't be so quick to judge you. So, number one, go there dressed appropriately. Number two, treat everyone in there with respect. I mean, you're the one who got yourself into trouble. They're just working, whether they're security, the court clerk who's trying to make the judge's calendar go quickly and get people lined up appropriately. Treat those people with respect, because if you don't, they're trying to. They might not be there trying to help you, but they're trying to make the process a little bit quicker and a little bit more sane for the judge. So treat all those people with respect. And then go in there, and when you talk to the judge, I don't understand these people who go in there. Yeah, nah, I don't know. I don't understand those. You're talking to someone who's holding your future and your life in his hands or her hands, and you're giving them the yeah, nah, Talk to the judge with respect. Again, you're the one that got yourself into trouble. And for those of you who say, well, I was targeted or it really wasn't my fault, well then, go in there and be humble, because you're not going to convince the judge that wasn't your fault by being obstinate and being rude to him or his staff. You're just not going to get treated the way that you want to be treated. And then, for those people you say that they're meek, you're probably talking about individuals who have to talk to the public defender, and the public defender is, I know a lot of these things, the public defender goes in there, and I've talked to a lot of these people, talks people into taking deals without ever really asserting their rights. And if you are out there and you truly believe that you're not guilty, then just don't take a deal. Try and figure out why the government really believes that you're guilty, or whether or not they can prove you're guilty. Now, I get it that oftentimes the government has you dead to rights, but if you truly believe you're not guilty, then assert yourself.
I'm glad you pointed out that clothes matter, Noel, because how else can they judge you if you are improperly dressed? That means you are not showing due respect to the court. These judges think that they are like God, that they are going to judge you.
They do.
They judge you by your appearance, whether you're well groomed or not. And one time I was in immigration court, so I told my client, you dressed as if you're going to a party. So she arrived in court with a spaghetti strap.
Well, that's too much.
And her boobs were unduly bigger than normal. So the judge, being a woman, said, "Who told you to dress like this? You're not going to a party." He said, "Oh, Attorney Tipon told me that I dress like I'm going to a party." "Attorney Tipon, you told her that. You give her your coat so she will dress up." So I had to give my coat to cover her. I don't know whether the judge was half joking or not, but anyway, we won that case with the spaghetti strap. Speaking of these motor vehicle violations, people have a cavalier attitude towards these motor vehicle violations, speeding, excessive speeding, all sorts of motor vehicle violations. And one alien, at least one alien, was deported for many traffic violations. I just got a decision here this week, and involving an Ecuadorian who was doing well in the United States. He was in the construction business, roofing business. He had 2 U.S. citizen children. But according to the court, regrettably, Takuri had frequent contacts with local police throughout his residency in the United States, including approximately 18 charges for driving with a suspended license or driving under the influence. So the Immigration and Customs Enforcement got fed up with this, and they initiated removal proceedings against him. And he was detained, and he was finally ordered deported. He was claiming that his children will suffer hardship. One had asthma, others had other illnesses. And this court said, well, they may suffer hardship, but the hardship that they are going to suffer is not extreme hardship. Extreme hardship. So being without a father is not an extreme hardship. And all because this person, an alien, had a cavalier, or I don't give a damn attitude towards these motor vehicle violations. It was not a felon. These all motor vehicle violations.
So what was their basis? Why did they say was their basis to remove him?
He was an illegal alien to begin with.
Oh well.
They would not have known that he was an illegal alien if we did not have all of this. Every time you are caught, you don't realize it, but they report it to the immigration. Let the immigration handle it. They're not going to. The police is not going to make a determination whether you are an alien or not. If you are an alien-sounding name, if your name is not Jones or Smith, they will send it to immigration. Let them sort it out. See if you are. But the immigration did not probably pay attention to this until he had all these 18 violations. So they said they got fed up. Well, let's get rid of this guy. So a motor vehicle violation is not by itself a deportable offense. But if you have so many of them, then you're really flaunting the law.
So he wasn't even a lawful permanent resident. He was
entered illegally, but he was doing well. He was here for 20 years. Nobody bothered him, but when he violated the law, motor vehicle laws, then they got rid of him.
So, I mean, if he was here for 20 years, then why not just let that go? I mean, I hear people out there talking all the time, well, why are you picking on these illegal aliens when citizens of the United States, they violate, I'm sure there's people in the United States who are American citizens who violate the law just as much or worse than this, and they're not kicked out of the country.
Well, the attitude of immigration is that if you enter the country illegally, you are like a thief that came in the dead of night. Okay, so you are inside the house, you went to the refrigerator, ate, and then raped the daughter and did other things, and what sympathy can you get? If you came in here, did nothing wrong, I don't think they would pick you up. That's why there are 10 to 15 million illegal aliens here. They're not being deported because they do not have any encounter with the law. But once you encounter 18, they allowed him 18 violations before they pick him up and deport him. And the court said, well, we sympathize with the children. They'll have a difficult life, but the law is the law. So we're going to deny his request for cancellation of removal. So the courts are not sympathetic to you if you violate the law so frequently. And I don't drink and drive. In fact, I've stopped drinking beer. I used to take beer, and then later on I took this non-alcoholic brew, and then I began to dislike the taste. So I don't drink beer anymore. I was at Max's, and they were offering me a beer. I think they were trying to test me whether I have a fear and resolve. And so, Apo, the lesson from this case is that the government will tolerate only so much. But if you overdo it, then they're going to get after you. Remember, the government...
even traffic violations. Even just traffic violations. Not. I mean, if you look in the immigration code, those are not deportable offenses.
It's not a deportable offense by itself, but too many...
You're no longer of good moral character, I think. I think that you're no longer being... I mean, who would want this person as a citizen? I mean, just think of this as you're going to... If you are the type of person that is willing to adopt people, because that's what America is doing. They're adopting these people as American citizens. If you're willing to... Is this the type of person that you'd want to voluntarily adopt and become a member of your family or become an American citizen? And yes, we'll tolerate... What's the saying? I should... Before I say that, I'm going to say it. Something that's on the Statue of Liberty. You're tired, you're poor, you're huddled masses. I should know what the saying is. But anyways, it doesn't say anything about about people who will constantly violate the law, and is going to put other people, not just American citizens, but other people at risk. If you drink and drive, you could kill somebody.
And then driving without license, because he cannot get a license
because he's drinking and driving, which is here in Hawaii is a full misdemeanor. I mean, you could kill somebody. How would you feel if you let this person stay in the country with a history of drinking and driving, and he killed or seriously injured somebody or somebody's child? So his children might have some sort of hardship by that father not being here, but the alternative is letting this person stay in the country and potentially harm another person. And he's only been lucky up till this point to not severely injure somebody while out there drinking and driving.
You have to remember, Apo, that immigration and customs enforcement have no sympathy. The word sympathy is not in their vocabulary.
That's true.
And neither do the police have any sympathy for you. So if you go into the court and try to ask for sympathy, it's not going to work. Your best bet, if you have a problem, whether motor vehicle violation or a serious crime, you get a competent lawyer. And I say competent because not all lawyers are competent. I've never seen so many lawyers in my life who are so incompetent as in Hawaii, for goodness sake. And even judges. They're just mumbling in courts. Sometimes I cannot understand. I went to a hearing aid dealer to have my ears checked whether there's a problem, and they said, well, there's no problem, but if you want to buy a hearing aid, I said, why will I buy a hearing aid if there's no problem? Anyway, I said, how much? $3,000 for a hearing aid. I'm going to spend $3,000 to buy a hearing aid that I don't really need. It's just that I do not understand these judges who are mumbling and mumbling. This kind of judges, how they are appointed, I don't know. Did they have any law firm at all? Did they have any clientele before they were appointed? In the Philippines, they get the best lawyers and appoint them as judges. Here, I don't know the criteria, for goodness sake. I've never seen this kind of judiciary. And you can quote me, and I can enumerate a few competent ones, but by and large, I'm not impressed with the choice of judges here. That's why the criminal justice system and the justice system in the United States is like this because they are not getting the best. How they appoint them, I don't know, political considerations, what school they went to, we don't know. And sometimes I'm tempted to go back to the Philippines, but I'm told that there's a big problem there. And speaking of the Philippines, Stan Ramos asked me to convey this to the people who plan to go to the Philippines. Even if you have a connecting flight to Lawag, they will quarantine you in Manila. You're supposed to be laid over for 1 hour. No, they're not going to allow you to do that. They'll bring you to the hotel, quarantine you for 10 to 14 days. Then they will let you board your plane 14 days later. Go to Lawag, you're quarantined again for 2 weeks. So 28 days of your vacation are gone. And if you have only 1 month vacation, what time will be left for you? So they asked me to complain. I said, why will I complain if that's what they want? If you don't want the law or the rules, don't go. But if you want to go, then you have to comply with their harsh laws, because there's a lot of infection in the Philippines. They are afraid to take the vaccine because they say it's made in China. So, you know, the Filipinos, they are very, they look down on Chinese made products. And what can you do if they don't want to take the vaccine? They're waiting for Pfizer or Moderna.
Oh, which one do they have there?
They don't have that.
The Johnson and Johnson?
No, they don't have. They all have made in China, and they don't want to take it because it came from China. So why will we take this thing? But without the pandemic, life, to me, and everybody tells me, I can have a better life in the Philippines with less work. So I have not decided what to do. So the criminal justice system here is very, very sad, and that's why you should get a competent lawyer like Noel Tipon to help you with your criminal issues. And if you have immigration concerns, let me know, and let's try to solve them, regardless of where you are, whether you are in LA or Iraq. If you have I had a client from Afghanistan. He wanted to petition a fiancé. I said, when are you coming back to the United States? I said, I'll be back before my fiancé gets her visa. Okay, so he was in the service. But he did not want to disclose his whereabouts, but you just send my mail to my home address in Hawaii, he said. So we have clients all over the world, and we are here to help you. I should not be working anymore. People tell me, well, attorney, you're still working. You are 88 years old. Yeah, because people call me. Yesterday I had 3 clients. They all want to meet at Max's. Why? Because they can have some halo-halo, or they can park for free. And Friday I have again 3 clients. So I said, well, maybe we should meet somewhere in Waikiki and sit down there on the beach, and bring me your checkbook. I don't want cash because it might fly away in the wind. Or it might be carrying some coronavirus. So I'm having fun helping people. I like to see the smile on the faces of people when they get what they're seeking for. And that is the joy of working even at 88. So don't think that 88 is a barrier. You know, 88 is a number. There are people who are 78 and they cannot even walk up a plane. They're just falling down 3 times. Oh, I can walk up the plane, up and down, even without holding the rails. So age is a number. One Ponce Enrile, I think, is 95, and he's still there telling people that I defied Marcos, and I defied this, and I defied the coronavirus. So age is not a big concern for people. So what I ask you to do is, you try us, you evaluate us. People don't understand, but when you hire a lawyer, it's like hiring a worker. You are hiring an employee. You are hiring a lawyer to work for you. So you have to evaluate the lawyer. If you don't like the first one that you see, then you go to another one. It's like a doctor. You don't like the first doctor because he doesn't have good manners, maybe, or he cannot explain to you what your problem is. Then you go to another one. Do not settle on the first one. It's like seeing a parking space. You see a parking space, maybe I'll take this one, but it's just too narrow. So I said, okay, I'll go to I'll look for another one. So don't get the first person you see. Don't marry the first woman that you meet. Look for alternatives first. So that is my message to our kababayan. We are here to help you. And as I said, 225-2645, 225-2645. Send me a text. And especially before noon, please send me a text so that I can tell that so-and-so, Mr. Mayor, has this concern. So what can you do to address it? Okay. So your closing thoughts.
Good message. Good message. Yeah, send us your report. Send us your questions. If you want us to pass on something to the mayor, it's tiponreport@gmail.com. Again, that's tiponreport@gmail.com. You've been listening to the Tipon Report with me, your host, Noel Tipon, and my co-host, Attorney Emmanuel Tipon, as always. Join us next Thursday morning. We'll try and answer your questions if you give them to us. We'll give a report to what happened in the meeting with Mayor Blangiardi, and we'll try and tackle some more of these pressing issues that face the local Honolulu community, Hawaii community at large. And we hope to hear from you. So thank you again to Floor. Thank you again to KNDI 1270 AM radio. It's 9:01 AM in sunny Honolulu, Hawaii.